Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello folks, how you doing? We're here today with a little call between Mr. Paul Capaldi and I. We talk a little bit about AEDPA, you know, Charlie Barron's and his whole thing about breaking lawn, which is, you know, about, you know, having lawns in areas that aren't exactly ideal for them. Anyways, short part. Anyway, then we go on to talk about several other things about the case. Okay, there I am. I was just trying to see if I could make myself bigger, but I guess I can't.
You have to get a few more McDonald's down you to make yourself bigger.
Yeah, well.
Wash down with a few more Dr. Peppers.
Yeah, nectar of the gods.
Yeah, absolutely. Which gods actually drink it, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Which gods actually drink it?
Well, if I'm saying the nectar of the gods,
yeah,
kind of narrows it down to a particular pantheon, doesn't it? Damn it! I know history, don't I?
Hey, listen, pal. I've got the body of a god. Unfortunately, it's a Buddha.
That's a good one. I like that. You rub your own belly for good luck, right?
If I could get my arms around it.
We need you need the shirts I saw when I was out buying my new casting couch today. My new couch for my little studio / theater here.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be coming tomorrow. So
is it chaise long? Is it?
It's a what now?
Or is it just a chaise long? A chaise long.
It's like a couch with a chaise. Yeah, actually. So
yeah.
It'll be back behind me here, over in the corner. The chaise will probably be along this wall right here, and then the couch will be on the back wall. So, so that's probably what's going to happen. So that'll be getting here tomorrow. So that's what I was going to do.
Yep. So does that mean that you can then use your computer screens or actually TV screens for, as you say, playing movies?
Yes, I put movies.
Yep.
I can put YouTube. I can put Netflix. I have a Fire Stick, so I have access to a bunch of content there. So, you know.
Listen, if you ever go on YouTube, there's a guy there did a video about O.J. Simpson. He reckons he's got 12,000 views. It's up to 13,000 views.
Yeah, I know that guy. He got up to 13,000 yesterday.
Yeah, and do you know what's good about that?
What's that?
Well, it's just that some of the people that are into OJ might then realise, you know, about making a murderer. They might then come and have a look at your other stuff, you know, and become more enlightened about the case because
I actually had somebody. I had somebody today commented coming in through the Todd Colehett videos. I don't know if you watched any of those. He's the South Carolina serial killer that they caught recently. I don't know if I've ever watched them, but I have noticed that you've done lots of videos about lots of different things. They found what was nearly his last victim, Charlie Carver, locked up in a big, like a big storage bin, like those big metal bins you see like on big freighters, like those big metal bins. One of those containers, container and shipping container, and she was locked in there, like chained in the middle of it in a cage, and it was horrible, but she actually lived, but there was other people they found on the property that weren't so fortunate and all that, so he's now been put away. But so I had a guy come in today through my Todd Colehett videos and saying, he basically said, I'm going to subscribe. I think I like your stuff or whatever, you know, so I'm going to subscribe. So he came in through the Todd Colehett videos today, and the OJ video, the OJ video is just like crazy. It goes through these weird spurts. Last night, for about 7 hours, it was getting about 90 views an hour for about 7 hours. And then today, like about around noon, for about 8 hours it was getting about 50 views an hour, and it's like it goes through these spurts, and then it goes to where it gets like maybe between 3 and 10 an hour for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom! It just somebody shares it, and all of a sudden, woo! All of a sudden, it starts spiking again. It's really odd. So
yeah,
but there's definitely an interest.
Please assure me that you don't spend your time looking to see how many. There is something that pops up and tells you that it's gone up.
There's well, if you got to get to know your analytics on YouTube.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, when you look into that, you can look at the real time stuff, and it shows you what your videos are doing in real time, like which ones are getting views right now. Now, actually, it only shows you like your most recent 20 videos. Me, I have 200. I'm now over 250 videos. Yeah. So I don't get to go back and look at well, I can, but it's more hard. It's a lot harder to go back and look at the real-time statistics on my older videos that are older, like more than 20 videos ago, essentially.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I know. Just maybe something we don't have in Scotland here, because I've never had any sort of. Did you say analytics?
Yeah. If you look on the left side of your YouTube.
You got to remember, pal. I've got a very simple form of YouTube specifically for Scotsmen. You know. Ah, yeah. You've got the deluxe version.
No. You need to learn how to use your YouTube, dude.
I'll have you show me sometime.
I'll make you a video.
Yeah, that would be good. Talking about videos, last weekend you told me that you were busy planting a lawn, or seeding a lawn. Yes, yes. I checked. I sent you a video by Charlie Berens.
Yes, I did see that video.
Simple question. Why have a lawn in your environment? Is it the British to blame? Is it the British to blame?
Because, well, no. It's just because that's what somebody wants. So
why a lawn when you've not got the environment for it?
Mainly because of the dogs. So that they have an area to play.
But I think in the Charlie Berens videos, it suggests alternatives, doesn't it? You know.
Oh well, you know.
No. And the thing is, you're putting all these chemicals down on the lawn to make it grow, which produces so much nitrous oxide. You know. And if you've got dogs rolling about in this, and then they bring it in.
You know, the manure would be sitting somewhere, putting whatever it puts into the atmosphere anyway. So this way it's feeding the grass. Wherever it was, even if it was in my backyard or if it was at the, manure packing plant, wherever that manure is, it's still going to be emitting whatever it would have emitted.
I've just touched a nerve there, haven't I?
I'm just saying.
I've just poked you one in the eye, pal.
Okay, buddy.
Because the other thing on the Charlie Berens video, he shows the frustration of people with their lawnmowers, which I think is absolutely superb. Because
you see the guy tripping like over one of the kids' toys, and
it's like, I mean,
I do agree with it actually. I mean, there's some companies now that are coming out with some. They're actually making turf now that actually really does have a pretty close approximation to grass. I mean, it's actually it's not perfect, obviously, but it actually kind of feels like and kind of similarly looks like blades of grass, and it kind of reacts like grass. And I'll tell you what, it's expensive right now. It's still new, so it's really expensive. But I think that may be a way for people to go, especially in places like California, Arizona, Nevada, where it's a desert, because water is a precious resource. I mean, and especially when we got stupid oil companies that want to build oil pipelines near every source of fresh water we have in the United States. We better start taking our fresh water seriously. So.
Well, I mean, the thing is, obviously where I am, we've got plenty of water, so I've got perfect environment for growing my lawn. But the first thing I did when I moved into the house, like, 12 years ago, was I got rid of the front lawn, made it so that I've got room to park the 2 cars at the front.
Right.
And then I completely gutted the back lawn, and completely leveled it, and put in a shed at the bottom of the garden, a shed at the top of the garden here, decking both ends, and stone chips in the middle, and it's maintenance free, you know, because for me gardening was not a joy, you know, it was just bloody hard work, you know, and you know, I just hated gardening. So, you know, as I've always said to people, my ideal garden would be a window box tarmac.
Yeah,
that would be my ideal garden. So anyway, I was checking in the shed, and I noticed that you'd sort of posted a Facebook post from either 1 or 2 years ago, saying that you're looking for a flux capacitor, and I think my cousin might have left one in the shed there. So I'm going to check out a couple of his old cars.
Your cousin,
Peter. Peter. Yeah.
Peter.
So I'll go and have a look and see if he's
okay.
If he's left that. Now.
Do you know what I'll do with it if I get a TARDIS or a flux capacitor? You know, one of the first things I'm going to probably go do, right?
Go for it.
I'm going to probably go and see what actually happened in several crimes that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I won't be able to share that knowledge. That would be against the rules. But I would like to know for myself a few things.
Yeah. Well, you know, obviously we tried to do a video. When was it? Was it Friday morning? Your Thursday night?
Yes.
I think it was. Yeah. And we had another technical issue with my headphones or my volume or whatever.
That was mine. But anyways, that was my fault.
Oh, hold on a sec.
My computer. I hadn't rebooted it when I plugged in my headphones. So.
I'm sorry, let me just make a note of that. Eric Jose admits it's his fault. Number 1. And I was asking you about the how you thought the ending of MAM should have gone. What should have been the proper ending to Making a Murderer?
I think a very really good ending to it would have been taking all of the really like dirtiest characters, the ones that we all see as really the biggest villains, and then putting their screenshot up on the screen at the end, putting it up for a little bit, and listing the, you know, just all the little things that they did, that they were involved in with this case that is fishy, suspect, outright known that it was planted. There's no question about it, really, except for this, you know, feigning of, you know, whatever it is by like Colburn and whatever. I shook the cabinet. Yeah, right. You shook the cabinet. Narnia appeared and the key popped out. You got it, buddy. You know. So So there's issues with the case, and so I'm thinking they should have like done a little list on each person's photo and gone out with like a photo, you know. Kind of just like one to the next one. Maybe start in the order of the least offenders. You know, the ones that are the infractions, or what we see as the infractions that are the probably least offensive, and then like as it gradually builds up to the big ones like Peg and Tom and Kratz and Fallon. You know, where those would definitely be the top 4. You know, type of thing. So. With maybe Judge Willis coming in at a close 5th, because Judge Willis bugs me, man. He seriously bugs me. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, what is the relevance of the Denny motion?" Yeah, think about what kind of defense they're running. They're running a planting defense. They're saying that things have been ignored, manipulated. This is what they're saying. This is their whole defense is based on this whole idea. Of people tampering with evidence. I mean, that's what it's based on. To not see the relevance of 2 deleted voicemails on the first Tuesday, the 1st, is mind-boggling. They were running a defense that was pointing out the problems with exactly that type of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's just like mind-boggling to me. That to me was clearly Judge Willis realizing that the prosecution was in a buttload of trouble if he continued to ask questions about it, and so he immediately backed off, quashed Jerry, and moved on. And that, I mean, to me, it was pretty much willful. You could see it.
Yeah. So basically, a rogues gallery of the, as you say, the ones that were most culpable. Yeah, that would be a
with a list of the things, you know, like
yes, yeah.
Obviously, Fassbender would have like Brendan's confession, badgering a woman who is obviously having issues with substance abuse, being Jody, going and badgering her until she told him to go away, and then they move on to Brendan. I mean, like a list of just the really just odd and fishy things. Tom telling Sherry to put Teresa in the garage or the trailer. Tom hiding the forensic data about the Dassey computer. Tom representing the control question and saying that it's proof of Brendan resisting officers when it's actually proof the exact opposite of that. So you would put a list of these things for each person like that, you know, with the picture. So that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I actually sent you a question last night because I was watching your very latest video, and you actually mentioned about the fact that, you know, that they were hassling and trying to get this confession out of Brendan because they thought he was involved. I've often asked this question, you know, at what point in the investigation did Fassbender and Wiegert realise that it was barking up the wrong tree? You know, and I've tried to ask, you know, at what point did that occur? Now, for me personally, I don't think there was ever any point when they ever thought that Brendan was involved. Mm-hmm. I think it was just it was a total frame up from the start. They, you know, we hear that within a couple of hours of Teresa being reported missing, have we got Stephen Avery in custody?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
That shows,
yeah.
That
All they did was they went in, directed by Kratz, and told, you know, you go and put her in his garage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think at any point they ever thought that Brendan was involved in anything.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They admit, you know, that, but then again, I mean, look at the way they treat. I mean, if you look at like law enforcement's attitude when they pull the car over on November 6th up at Crivet's, and they realize that they have two young teenage boys in there. It's like they immediately go, I wonder if we could bully one of these kids into saying something incriminating. I wonder if they know anything or whatever. I wonder if we could get him to say something. And it's like they zero in on Brendan. You know, it's like they pick up. See, this is what kills me about this. People are saying they didn't know about Brendan's limitations. Bull crap. They pick up on his limitations almost immediately. That's what draws them to him. Are you kidding me? So. But you can see that they hone in on him on November 6th there, you know, and the way that they're questioning him, they're making up false facts. They're saying that Teresa had medical condition and all this other crap, which we all now know after listening to Karen Hallbach's call, which Casey Martinez posted just the other day. Listening to that call, she clearly tells the dispatcher, no, she didn't have any medical conditions or anything like that. We know that's not true, but yet we had Officer O'Neill telling Brendan, oh, she's sick. We need to make sure that she's going to be okay. If you know where she's at, you got to tell us. Come on, man. I know it's hurting you. All that stupid crap that they, you know, continuously used against him. But at least in that one, he didn't crack. He held his ground. You know, but...
Yeah, we actually hear from that Officer O'Neill actually in the I think it's either episode 9 or 10, don't we? And we say that he, you know, he knows how to deal with these, you know, these teenagers that you know that don't want to talk, you know, and he's met that sort of type, you know, and he hadn't at all. You know, Brendan was quite unique, quite a large lad for a 16-year-old, you know, and it's very easy to assume that somebody is very mature based on the size of them, you know, whereas in actual fact, you know, some of these big lads, they're actually very immature. You know, I mean,
sure.
You know, apparently, you know, Brendan used to faint at the sight of blood. You know.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's like.
Which makes it pretty difficult to try and pull off a rape and murder if you faint at the sight of blood. So, you know, but, you know, just common sense anyway.
Well, as I've mentioned before, you know, if Brendan was able to rape Teresa for 5 minutes and not even to ejaculate, then he is obviously some sort of you know, replacement for Ron Jeremy, because you know, that is some going, son. You know, a 16-year-old. Nah, that's it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, and it's so clear. I mean, you know, another thing I remember seeing on video was when Brendan turns to Mark Regan and he says, "How do you spell garage or garage?" You know, and he's having to spell it out for him. You know.
Yep.
It's like, come on, you know, you're dealing with a kid that clearly, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he might have been 16, but in terms of his sort of mental capacity, he's like an 11-year-old.
For them to feign ignorance that they didn't realize that Brendan might have had some limitations is just absolutely laughable. It's beyond ridiculous. It's obvious that they hone in on him for that exact reason. They pick up on it that quickly and hone in on him for the reason that they know that he's malleable. They know it, you know, and they exploit it.
Okay. So next question.
Yeah.
Why is Brendan still locked up?
Because of AEDPA.
The Anti-Terrorism.
The Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. Yes. And what that does is ties the hands of federal judges when they are reviewing somebody on habeas appeal or on habeas relief. So it ties their hands in a way that it makes it very hard for them to overturn the appellate court or the trial court of any given, you know, state or whatever, unless there's some really seriously wrong issues with it. And those issues are very, very clearly defined by AEDPA. And so that's what kind of makes it difficult and stands in the way here. Or at least it's offering the resistance that we're seeing here. Because clearly two panels, well, one judge wrote a 91-page decision, which is unprecedented. For a judge to write a decision that's 91 pages long.
Duffin.
Generally they're like 6 to 15 pages, right? So you get a 91-page decision exonerating or overturning Brendan's confession or his conviction and throwing out his confession. And then you get another panel that 2-1 votes in favor of granting Brendan his habeas relief. And then we get to the en banc review where suddenly a judge retires right before, and so everything looks a little wonky. And then suddenly because a tie would have went in Brendan's favor, if there would have been 8 judges on the en banc and it went 4-4, Brendan would have automatically won because he had won the 2 previous judgments, right?
Yeah.
He won from the magistrate when Duffin, you know. He granted it. He won again when the 3-judge panel did it. So
Rothman Williams.
So he had won twice. So if the en banc had 8 judges and it came out in a tie, then that tie would have went in favor of Brendan. So it makes it all that more odd that the one judge like bails and gets out of Dodge right then. Not saying it's for sure. Not saying I'm not saying that it's absolute proof. But what I'm saying is it looks damn odd. And then when you see the majority misrepresent the facts the way that they do in their decision, it gives further suggestion to that kind of gut instinct that I felt when I first heard about that judge bailing out right before this, you know. So seeing that the majority's decision was bending the facts to try to bolster their decision, that they felt they needed to do that, number one, is kind of telling to me, kind of makes me wonder a little bit, because if they felt they needed to misrepresent the facts, doesn't it suggest that they maybe felt weak? Like they felt like maybe their decision and what they were trying to say was maybe weak, and they needed to kind of give it a little bit more, support. I don't. So that's what it looks like. So, but yeah, so that's some of the issues I have there. But yeah, AEDPA stands in the way. You have to have either an egregious, really, really bad fact finding by the trial court or the appeals court, to the point of being just beyond ridiculously bad. Now that tends to mean that it just has to be a complete and horrible, shit show, essentially. That's, I think, where a lot of judges get in the weeds here, because a lot of judges say, well, how much is egregious, and how much is just short of egregious, and so I think judges end up like trying to find the line on this, but I think the line is constantly moving, and I think it's starting to move a lot right now, because so many people are interested in what's happening to Brendan and some other cases like the Slenderman cases. People have seen what happened with the West Memphis 3. People have seen what happened with the Central Park 5. So people are seeing evidence of kind of how this happens and how this works. So that's, I think, maybe starting to permeate the judges, because if everybody hasn't seen, I made a couple videos this weekend about something that the appellate court judges in Illinois did recently. They overturned the conviction of this gentleman. Well, I'll use the term gentleman loosely. He's a gang member, but they overturned the conviction of Jesus Sanchez because he was an 18-year-old kid. But beyond the fact that the evidence really kind of didn't point to him, didn't make sense, that the prosecutor and the law enforcement was trying to put this kid in the place of the shooter. It's so many. I mean, in this court, this court really tears the trial court, the law enforcement involved in the case, all of them. I mean, it tears them a new one. It doesn't hold back, and I mean, it criticizes almost every single point of the case. It's just, it's amazing. You get the feeling that appellate court is maybe listening to some of what's blowing in the wind now. Maybe they read Judge Rovner's dissenting opinion in the Brendan Dassey case, and maybe it resonated with them, along with maybe they read some of the amicus briefs for Brendan's case, and some of the things that the Innocence Network and the Psychologists and Psychiatrists Association and some of these other organizations were saying about how really vulnerable kids are, especially ones who are limited mentally, and how very vulnerable they are, and how important it is for us to really start to take notice and look at what DNA is teaching us, get ourselves into the modern age, pull our heads out of our backsides and move forward. So
yeah, just getting back to the AEDPA, the big problem with it is the fact that it's used in the sense that they, as you say, at federal level, they're told that they cannot change go against a decision of a lower state court if the decision reached by that state court is deemed to be reasonable.
Right.
And I remember on Friday I said to you, whereabouts in Wisconsin, would you find a reasonable state court? Because you just don't, do you? It would be perfectly acceptable for the Seventh Circuit to say, that Wisconsin acted reasonably, because that's what they do all the time. They just ignore everything,
Well, that's the line that's constantly moving. It's what's reasonable. That's kind of the line that I was talking about that moves, so yeah.
But then also you touched on something that was interesting, which is, as you say, if the vote had gone 4-4, then Brendan would have won, and the state would be appealing to SCOTUS.
Yes.
And had, if as in we hope, Brendan's case is listened to, which, it's when you've got these 6 amicus briefs, these judges, they're gonna take note of the fact that this is such a huge case, and the margin was only 4-3. But I suggested that in actual fact it probably did Brendan a slight favour in that, the sort of velocity of the volume of amicus briefs and the language of them is coming from the point of view that Brendan lost that Seventh Circuit review, and now everybody's piling in and saying you have to do something about it. And I'm just wondering if there would have been that same intensity had they come from a sort of a 4-4 win, as it were, and maybe in a bizarre way it actually helps Brendan that there was this sort of loss at the Seventh Circuit en banc review level, which is now, people are saying, hold on a sec, this is wrong, because this is the thing, isn't it, that even the Seventh Circuit judges, the 4 of them that voted in favour of the state, even if they accept that Brendan Dassey is innocent, because of this AEDPA, they can't. They have to decide, as you say, where this line of sort of what was reasonable by Wisconsin.
Right.
And is it? Am I right in thinking that the defence of Brendan has slightly changed tact in that they're looking more at voluntariness now?
Well, yeah, they're looking
rather than saying what was reasonable at state level. They're now looking more at the voluntariness of Brendan's confession, and all 6 of these have piled in and said this wasn't voluntary. You have to listen to this.
Right. There's going on that. They're sticking to the fact that he was 16 years old. He's a minor, juvenile, who the Supreme Court has repeatedly, time and time again, has ruled that minors require special care, and that's what they're banking on right here, is that the special care was not there.
Yep.
And they're making that argument by saying that, look, the trial in the appeals court, they make mention of kind of some of the limitations of Brendan in their analysis of the voluntariness of the confession, but they don't ever mention his age there. And then of course the state wants to come back with, oh yeah, they mentioned his age in the whatever. Well, that's over in your summary of your argument. It should be one of the factors in the totality of circumstances over here in the evaluating of the voluntariness. Shouldn't be over here in the summary. I mean, well, it could be there too, but the fact that he's a juvenile should also be in the voluntariness review. So that is actually a valid point to my mind. I mean, it does seem like they were just kind of casually cavalier with their consideration of whether or not Brendan's confession was voluntary. It's just the way it looks to me.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to look at who considered Brendan's appeals. It was the same judge that heard the case. Now, I can understand that to a certain extent, yes, it's a case of, you want somebody that knows about the case looking at it. But since when is a judge going to go against his original decision, the original decision of the court?
How inclined is he going to be? Yes.
Exactly. But anyway, we then touched on a very interesting thing, which was about you did a video about an actual prosecutor that was very ethical,
right?
In that he changed his mind, he changed tack, and you congratulated him, and I suggested, well, America, that should be the norm. You shouldn't be congratulating. That should be his normal line of work. I was saying to you about when I used to watch American TV, you get things like Kojak, Starsky and Hutch, Hawaii Five-0. There was this direct connection. You had the police, you had the attorney, you had the judge, and the police had to get the evidence to present to the attorney so that the attorney could say, that's enough for me to or that isn't enough for me to prosecute.
Right.
And so these attorneys, they should be ethical, shouldn't they? But they seem, some of them are just so career minded that, you know, they just don't want to be seen to have got anything wrong, you know.
And that's the rub.
And they will CYA. That's a new one you taught me, by the way.
Yes,
yeah. And it's just absolutely ridiculous, because, you know, if you're prosecuting innocent people, as you quite rightly pointed out, then and everybody knows that person is innocent, you completely destroy any faith in. Well, I'm not going to call it a justice system, because certainly in parts of America you don't have a justice system. You know, that's a complete and utter falsehood. You have a legal system which is open to abuse from so many different angles. It's unbelievable. And I'm not having a go at you and the Americans. You know, this is what unfortunately has manifested itself, hasn't it? You know, over the years, this system has evolved. One of the big problems, of course, is a lot of this. A lot of the people are there not on merit, but because they got voted in.
Right. Yes.
Which is to people in the UK, that is a huge problem. You know, if you're good enough, it doesn't matter what age you are, what sex you are, what colour you are, what your political views are. Right. It's if you're good enough to do the job. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it shouldn't come down to, you know, which party you voted for, or, you know, how many $1,000 you got given from one side or the other and stuff like that. But but
there's always generally going to be that involved in any system, even yours, most likely. I mean, maybe not as bad as it is in ours. Yeah, but
no. We've had MPs, and I sent you about that Diane Abbott. She is a complete train wreck of an MP.
Yeah, you know? That one was. She was absolutely.
But she's the exception. And there have been some really good, obviously.
I'm saying MPs. Your system might be pretty good. I'm just saying that to my mind, the way the world is, the nature of the universe, that every system's going to have some of the undesirable, you know, aspects to it. It's just the nature of life. So
it just depends on how many parts of that system are open to corruption, and it just seems from the outside world looking in, I would say that you know, you look at, as I say, everybody being voted in. You've got prisons for profit. You know, the amount of you know, well, dare I say it. You know, you've got Stephen Avery being represented by two attorneys who are really, really good friends with, sitting on panels with
Peg Lattenschlager
and
Fallon.
Gorm, you know, Lattenschlager, you know, and so you know, the point is, they know how to play the game. To them, it is just a big fucking game, you know. It's just a game that they're playing. And of course, the rule is you don't offend your friends higher up the food chain, because that could affect your career. Right. You know, you're given a few toys to play with, and that's your lot. You know, you're allowed to criticize the ones below you. You know, you're allowed to go at the cops to a certain extent, or you know, or as much as you know, Willis allowed them to. You know, but we just see corruption all the time, you know.
Absolutely.
Now, talking about elections, Mr. Herman could be retiring. He could have done his 12 years, and we now have a candidate
who's
come forward.
Hat in the ring.
Yeah, he's been 20 years with Manitowoc County. We don't know, you know, much about him. I must.
Yeah,
Dan Hartwig.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him.
Was it Hartman? Was it Hartman or Hartwig?
I hope it wasn't Hartman. I hope it was Hartwig.
Hartwig, I'm sure it was, yes.
Yeah.
So, remember last year, Jerry posted a tweet about the fact that, you know, with the election for sheriff coming up this year in Manitowoc,
that Pete Bates might run. I wish he will.
Yeah. And remember, I sent you a video that he did.
Yes.
With Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
She's
not important.
Sorry?
I said, well, she's not important.
No, she's not.
She's like practically orgasming all over herself the whole time. It's like difficult to watch her in the video, but fortunately Pete does most of the talking.
He does. and he talks about a lot of things, including the fact that although he doesn't name names, he points out, as one or two people have already, that for those bones to be planted, somebody had to have known Steve's dog, his German Shepherd, very well, because to get past Bear, it would only be people that he knew from the yard that would have got past him.
Right.
So, you know, he doesn't actually mention names, but well, he's obviously referring to very close neighbours of Steve. So?
I said it's because he's smart.
He is, yes. Yeah. Well, he is. He's very smart. And some of the stuff he talks about, you know, like I liked. There are certain bits you liked and picked up on. I particularly liked the fact that he mentions that, you know, when Brendan is out, you know, you're looking at somewhere in the region of 5 million compensation, which is going to be difficult for Manitowoc to find.
Yep.
And when Steve's out, you're looking at such a huge amount,
right?
That really is going to be, you know, that they're going to have to,
and
you know,
when it happens, it's not going to, the money to pay it is not going to be drawn from the entire state. It's going to be drawn from the county where this all pretty much took place. Now that may involve Calumet. It may involve Calumet and Manitowoc at this point for Stephen, because now both of those agencies are involved with his conviction. So it may involve both of those counties with him, where he'll be drawing possibly from both of them. But yeah, the money will not be drawn from all of Wisconsin. It will be drawn specifically from the areas where this took place. So that is going to be particularly crippling, because they were also pointing out that all of the like factories and all those sort of things in the area have recently been pulling out and moving like overseas or moving out of Wisconsin or whatever, because there was some, I guess, certain laws that were being passed that were, you know, making it difficult for them, or it wasn't economically viable for them to stay there anymore, whatever it was. And so now you've got more people without jobs, and then potentially this huge bill to be paid. So it makes it even more troubling for the residents there in the area.
Yeah,
it's one of the things Pete talks about in the interview. You'll probably be able to correct me on this, but I remember seeing a report before the presidential election where I'm sure that Donald Trump was talking about the fact that you've got this certain load of states that are known as, is it the Rust Belt? Because they used to have all this manufacturing industry, and now all the factories are shut down and the machine is all rusting. Have I got that right? Because one of the things he wants to do is try to get them back and working again, you know? Your Wi-Fi is getting wonky.
Which is going to be... Oh, and me.
Yeah.
Is it getting any better again? Is it getting better?
At least your audio is coming through solid. But the video's getting all pixelated and... Yeah, the video's all pixelated and stuff, but I can hear you just fine.
Well, okay. I'm gonna finish off then with a question, and it was to do with your thing about Jesus Sanchez, and I actually sent you a message, Jesus, yes, even before I'd sort of watched it, and I said, well, do we really need to care too much about gang members? Does it really matter if they get the wrong one, if they get shot and all this kind of stuff? I mean, they're in their own little murky road. It doesn't matter to the rest of us if they get a wrongful conviction, does it?
Right. To which I said the 3 appellate judges in the state of Illinois would have a bone to pick with that, I think. They didn't like a lot of the things about this case. The non-recorded interrogations, the arresting two of the parties, and acting as though they hadn't arrested them for almost an entire day. Well, for at least 12 hours. They pretended like they hadn't arrested them, But anybody that watched what happened all thought they were arrested. The two kids that were handcuffed and taken to the police station and whatever thought they were arrested. They didn't think that they were free to go anywhere. So the appellate court got pissed off about that. And then the fact that they didn't record the first interrogations with these two young gentlemen. A bunch of things where they pointed out a lot of things. I mean, it's so many things that they pointed out. That's why I had to make it 3 videos. I mean, it wasn't... I couldn't do it justice and try to show everybody all the things that they were pointing out about this case, that they were just putting their foot down and just going, no, this is not acceptable. The particularly fascinating thing that I thought paralleled Stephen's case, that I just thought was very interesting, was the jury bargaining. There was jury bargaining again in this case. It's, I mean, fascinating how this happens. But jury deliberates for 5 hours, sends a note to the judge. They're like, irreconcilable. We are split. We're split. That's it. You know, kind of thing. And the judge sends a note back. I don't know how a note would somehow rectify the situation, but the judge sends a note back. Suddenly, 5 hours later, we got the jury coming back. We've got a guilty verdict for the murder of Mr. Orozco, and not guilty of the attempted murder of Edson, the other guy that actually didn't die. I think he was wounded but didn't die. So they go guilty with the murder, but not guilty on it. Remind anybody of something? Guilty of murdering Teresa Halbach, but not guilty of mutilating her corpse, right? So I thought that was interesting. There was some other parallels, obviously, between the confessions of not only Mr. Sanchez, but his friend Mr. Flores. The interrogations and statements that they made have a lot of similarity, a lot of the same tactics, a lot of the same type of language and false promises, not necessarily false promises, but lying to him about evidence, a lot of things. And then the appellate court got kind of like upset about this presumptive GSR test that these detectives used on Mr. Sanchez, because you get the feeling that the appellate court had never heard of this before either, because they're not. You get the feeling they don't even know what it is really, because they say you need to tell. They go on to say that from now on, when you want to use that presumptive test thing, because they looked into it, you're going to have to inform the person you're using it on. Uh-oh, you still there? All right, well, as you can see, our call got cut a little bit short there today, but don't worry about that, folks. Paul and I will probably have another call later on in the week, and we'll be able to touch on anything that we didn't quite touch on today, which I think we should have been able to touch. Had we talked a little longer, we would have touched more on the recent developments with the Karen Halbach call into the police station to report Teresa missing. That is an interesting development that has recently come out. And although I did touch on it a little bit, we'll obviously probably talk about it a little bit more. So, anyway, that's about it for today, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.